Julio, a 72-year-old man, lived alone in a small countryside village where everyone knew him as the kind of man who never complained, even after losing almost everything. His simple house barely held up against the winter winds, and his only income was a tiny pension that barely covered the electricity bill. Still, Julio would often walk around the neighborhood collecting cans and abandoned objects, more out of habit than necessity. On one of these walks, something caught his eye in an empty lot near the old station. Among the tall grass and rust, there was a completely abandoned car, an old model he could swear he recognized. On impulse, he stepped closer. The car was covered in dust, peeling paint and the marks of time, but something was strange. All the doors were locked except for the trunk, which was slightly open, as if someone had tried to force it. Curious, Julio lifted the lid carefully, expecting to find junk or scrap metal. But the bottom, protected by a thick tarp, was a metal chest with a reinforced lock, the kind you don't see on ordinary items. He hesitated, thinking about calling someone, but something about that discovery felt like it was meant for him. Without the courage to open it there, he closed the trunk and decided to return the next day with tools. Little did he know that this decision would change his destiny completely. That night, he could barely sleep. The idea of the chest gnawed at his mind, as if it had not only a secret, but also an answer to something he didn't even know he was seeking. Julio got up before sunrise, grabbed his late father's old toolbox, and went back to the empty lot. The place seemed quieter than usual, almost as if the entire town was still in a deep sleep. When he opened the trunk again, a shiver went down his spine. The chest was exactly where he had left it. The rusty lock gave way with 2 careful hits, allowing him to slowly lift the heavy lid. What he saw nearly made his legs give out. Inside the chest were dozens of small sealed lock boxes, stacked with precision, each wrapped in old leather bands. Among them were laminated documents, age notes, and seals from international banks dated more than 30 years ago. Trembling, Julio picked up one of the packages and realized it was full of gold bars, real gold bars. He had never seen gold up close, but that unmistakable shine left no doubt. It took a moment for the truth to sink in. This was a fortune. Still, he refused to believe destiny had simply dropped such wealth into his lap. He sat on the ground, breathing deeply, trying to understand how something like that had ended up there. Examining the papers more closely, he found a handwritten letter signed by someone named Eduardo Bastos, a name Julio remembered hearing in his youth. The document explained that the gold was a result of a millionaire scheme involving politicians and businessmen at the time, and that Eduardo, filled with regret, had hidden everything to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. The letter also said the treasure should be found only by someone honest enough to use it the right way. A tear rolled down Julio's face before he even noticed. Why had this been left for him? Why in that forgotten car? The truth felt more unlikely than a dream. Julio decided to take some of the documents to an old friend, Mauro, a retired police officer who now worked as a mechanic. He trusted him since their youth and believed he was the best person to help confirm whether everything was real. When Mauro saw the gold bars and read the documents, he turned pale, confirming the unimaginable value. A rough estimate showed the treasure easily surpassed $260 million. Julio felt his chest tighten, not with greed, but with fear. He had no idea what to do with such a discovery. If the wrong people found out, his life would be in danger. If he hid it, he would live with a heavy conscience. For days they talked, analyzed every detail, and tried to understand if there was any immediate danger. According to Mauro, the abandoned car belonged to a man who had disappeared decades earlier, the very same Eduardo Bastos. The mystery deepened. Why was the vehicle still there? And why had no one else found the treasure? Julio noticed something chilling. Everyone who had known about the gold had vanished over the years. It was as if the secret had been protected by time itself, waiting for someone who truly didn't desire it. Perhaps that was why the treasure had never been retrieved. It felt like Eduardo had chosen the moment on purpose. After much reflection, Julio made a surprising decision. He wouldn't use the money for himself. Instead, he would turn the gold over to the authorities, but only after ensuring it would be directed towards schools, hospitals, and social projects in the region. Mauro thought the idea was dangerous, but understood. Julio had always been a simple man with a heart larger than his hardships. In the following days, the two worked discreetly, cataloging every lockbox and document. With each item they listed, Julio felt a mix of peace and sorrow. Peace for doing what he believed was right. Sorrow for knowing he would continue living humbly despite having touched a fortune. When they finally approached the district attorney, they presented everything cautiously. The case exploded in the local news, but Julio requested to remain anonymous. He didn't want fame or recognition. He only wanted the gold to be used correctly, just as Eduardo had wished. After investigations, it was confirmed that the treasure was indeed linked to a long-forgotten millionaire scheme, and Julio had unintentionally uncovered one of the region's greatest financial mysteries. The elderly man became a sort of silent legend, known by few, admired by all who learned the true story. Months later, the town began to change. Schools were renovated, hospitals received new equipment, and social projects appeared like never before. Julio walked through the streets and saw children smiling where there had once been neglect, and that filled his heart more than any wealth ever could. The abandoned car was removed, the lot revitalized, and the chest, now empty, was given to the old man as a keepsake. He kept it at home, not as a symbol of fortune, but of purpose. Sometimes, sitting on his porch, Julio would smile to himself, thinking about how a simple walk had led him to transform so many lives. In the end, he understood that true wealth had never been in the gold.